Welcome back to another edition of the Good Eye Podcast. I'm Jason Mack, your host, and today I'm going to keep this intro quick because we got a lot to talk about. What we did was went out to the kickoff event of the Go Forward Together Ride / Forward Fest, which is an event that we're having this October 5th at Final Gravity. This is the 5th year of the event. We talk all about that. But we went out and set up live and invited people to come out as we kick off, sort of in anticipation of this event, and offered riders the opportunity to register and hang out, and if they so choose to imbibe. Final Gravity has some great craft brew selections. So we have a few conversations, one between Andrea Starr, Executive Director of the Forward Foundation, and myself. Also Steve Dragoni, who is the ride committee member along with me, and all we do is act as a point person for the riders interested, and my brother, who's done the ride and will do it again this year. So anyway, enjoy. Here's a bunch of information, some conversations. Hopefully you find something useful in today's Good Eye Podcast. All right, here we are at Final Gravity. Andrea, thanks for jumping on the mic with me here. I guess technically this is a Good Eye Podcast, but the Forward Foundation is the theme of it, and I think we might do one or two of these, but we are at Final Gravity, the site of the 5th annual Go Forward Together Ride / Forward Fest, and already I think the energy has lifted from the past few years, and they were great. Last year was the first really full official ride. We had a few before, but it was during COVID, and then we got rained out one year. It was always something. And then last year it did rain, but we did the ride, and it was super intense, and I can already see a couple of the people from last year's ride hanging out here at Final Gravity. So anyway, how's it feel? I feel like the energy's already lifted. I
absolutely feel like the energy is lifted, and this is our year. I know it. This is our year. Mother Nature is going to be on our side. We've survived a pandemic. We survived a hurricane. We survived a downpour. This is our year, and incorporating the Forward Fest component to it to really provide opportunity for the entire community to be involved was, the reasoning behind it. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of adrenaline around this.
And the Forward Fest thing is something I really want to stress, because the first few years, we're just kind of feeling our way through it. And then last year when the ride finally went off and we got back, it was such, again, to use a cliche, the energy was so great because the riders had gotten back from the either 50 or the 30, and it had rained the whole time. So it was super intense. But then you get back knowing that you've helped this great cause, and everybody's hanging around, and the vibe was just so good. But I think the numbers were held down a little bit from the rain that we got in the morning, but it was still great. We had live music, and we had vendors, and we had food and trucks, and of course Final Gravity was super, super helpful. So the Forward Fest thing, this is the first year that we're calling it Forward Fest, though, right? And which is specifically at the after party. And I need to stress, you don't have to do the ride, just show up for the festival. But this is the inaugural officially Forward Fest.
It is. And, in talking about the excitement of this event and the growth and the evolution of it from when we started, it just made sense to add that component. We'd always called it an after party, but to be able to share with the community that you don't have to be a cyclist to come out and do this. And so the Forward Fest component is for all of those who have either chosen to do the ride and want to just celebrate and have fun and hang out afterwards, or for the rest of the community that maybe isn't, doesn't cycle. This is an opportunity for them to come out and be a part of the event as well. And it's family friendly, it's pet friendly. We have something for everybody, and it's, again, it's live music, it's raffles, it's outdoor games. There's going to be a creation station, so fun stuff for the kids. And then another really cool component this year is the addition of Shields and Sheath coming out with their portable axe throwing unit, which is going to be a lot of fun too.
I think I'll try that early rather than later. This is not an event where one has to come and indulge in, beers or anything else. It is, I stress, is a family event. But if I'm going to be throwing any sort of sharp object, I'll do it early, I promise.
Good. Probably a very wise decision.
Okay, talk a little bit about, I never want to get too far away from what the Forward Foundation does. And we went to an event recently over at the Diamond for the squirrels, and a bunch of the families, mostly mothers at this point, I think, even though it's not gender specific, but mostly mothers are in the program. Talk a little bit about what the program is, because we tell people it's for single parents in crisis, in financial crisis, most of whom, I guess all of whom are working and are having trouble making ends meet. And that's why Forward Foundation exists. Talk a little bit about that, about what the organization does and what the program entails.
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit that serves the greater Richmond area, and we are serving a very specific demographic, Jay. The demographic that we serve are families that would not be eligible for services through the state because on paper they're making too much money. But in reality, whatever their circumstances are, it has resulted in real financial challenge. So the criteria to be in our program is you do have to be working. So you're either working full-time, finishing an advanced degree, so going to school full-time, or a combination of the both. And again, for families that would not be eligible for services through the state. So we are filling that gap, and that's what makes the foundation so unique. So who do we serve? We are serving your coworkers, we are serving your neighbors, we are serving your family members, people that look just like you and I that are sitting next to us in all of the places that we frequent. That's who we serve. And being able to provide support to these families is to alleviate when something catastrophic is going to happen, right? We want to be able to step in before they feel like they have to quit their job because they can't afford childcare, or before they feel like they have to sell their home because their financial challenges have kind of taken them to the edge. We want to be that support, and that is what the foundation provides. So it is programming, it is education, it is resources, but more importantly, it's community. It's about really being the safe space for families that are going through challenging times and really don't have anywhere else to turn. And so what can we do to step in and help them move forward is what it's all about.
It's really cool when new people come on either to the ride or the organization, or when you tell someone about it and they go, oh my God, that's, for example, I'm going to call him out because he's part of our team, but Liam over at the MS Society. I do the MS ride. I've done it for 20 years. Liam is relatively new to their team, new because I've been doing it for 20 years. He's been on for a few years. But when we asked him to come on and advise us about this event, he jumped on. Now, first of all, people who are involved in service and volunteerism usually do that. They're usually spread way too thin, but they're like, how can I help? But everybody comes on and says, oh my God, what a great organization. I've never heard of anything like this. How do these families, how do these mothers and fathers, these single mothers and fathers, find out about you guys? And then what's their reaction when they're like, oh my God, this is something that I have needed? Because you guys literally provide financial training, job resume training, things like that. So how do they find you, and what's the reaction when they do?
So a lot of different ways. We've been very fortunate in that the RVA community has been incredibly receptive to the work that we do. So we get a lot of media support through all the radio stations, through TV stations. Richmond Times-Dispatch just did a cover article about the foundation. But word of mouth is pretty significant. And so for the people that are familiar with the foundation, people that volunteer, people that support us, what I always ask of everyone is be our eyes and ears. When you are looking around, or you're talking to somebody, or you meet somebody, are you paying attention to, what's going on, and could you offer us as a resource? So word of mouth is huge. A lot of people hear about us from word of mouth. They hear about us from the families that we've served, whether they're alumni or they're currently in the program. They hear about us from our community partners. They Google us. We're all over social media. So a lot of different ways for people to find out we exist, but I would say for the majority, somebody has said, hey, do you know about Forward Foundation?
That's really cool. And like I said, almost everybody has been touched by a family with one parent in some way or another, or comes from one. My dad was someone who grew up in a single parent household. He's a very, very stoic, even-keeled guy, so he may not want me sharing too much. He's very proud, but his mother, my grandmother, was incredible. She worked after his father died. My father, he's still living, but when his father died when he was 6 months old, my grandmother worked in a factory to raise him and my aunt, my sister. They risked being taken away from her at one point, because this was a long time ago. And if something like this had existed then, I know it would have been just an incredible resource for her. So I also want to touch on, I want to get to the ride itself at some point, and we may shut down here and come back because we're going to be here for a while. We're at Final Gravity right now. It's Wednesday night. This will probably air tomorrow or Friday. But I want to get into the opportunities you mentioned a little bit earlier for sponsorships and other nonprofits, because we had kind of kicked around the idea for having a Forward Fest and inviting other nonprofits to set up who are sort of like-minded or have a cause, because there's a lot of crossover when it comes to helping families and some of the things that families deal with. Again, when it comes back to getting the word out, it's got to be tough reaching potential sponsors, because I would imagine, and I know from Primus Bank, that when they come on, they relate to the organization. How do you go about finding sponsors? Because nonprofits live and die by their sponsor involvement.
Well, yeah, nonprofits are relying on our sponsors and our donors to keep our doors open. That, we can't do what we do without that support. But honestly, Jay, the best way it's not about just finding a sponsor. It's about finding a sponsor that aligns with what you are doing. And Primus is one of those. The CEO of Primus, Dennis Ember, has been an incredible supporter of the foundation. He has a personal connection to single parenthood. His father was raised by, his grandmother was a single mother. And the kindness of neighbors that stepped in to help her when she was left destitute changed the entire trajectory for his mother's life and for his father and his father's brother's life. So being able to talk about what we do, and like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people have some connection to single parenthood. I was raised by a single dad at a time that just was not the norm, and I was also a single mom. So again, knowing what an organization like this, the impact it would have had on me years ago, would have been transformational. And that's why this organization is so important, and that's why people feel so connected to what we do. So when we are looking for support, it's finding those that really align and understand the importance of what we do. That's where the longevity comes from. That's where the full-on commitment comes from. So being able to connect with those individuals, or having others that hear about what we do, and they may not have an alignment, but they may know of somebody that they can say, you know what, you need to talk to them because they're a single parent, or this is the area of which they like to focus their philanthropic efforts on. That's the key, I think, is really seeking out the individuals that truly believe and align with what it is that you're doing.
And much like this organization, the Forward Foundation, I would imagine most of your corporate partners are pretty small and likely local. I mean, I know it'd be great if a Bank of America or somebody like that swooped in and wrote a massive check, but just like the organization, which has an effect in our backyards here in the Richmond area, a lot, if not all, you can correct me, of your sponsors and corporate partners are in this area. Is that right?
That is right. A lot of people like to support local, but I want people to remember too that there are a lot of amazing organizations doing incredible work, and we need them all. But in order for all of us to have an opportunity, you're fighting against the big dogs, right? And again, it's about alignment. What is the area that you feel drawn to support? And we are looking for those larger sponsors because, again, it's longevity. You want to be able to continue to build upon what you're doing, be able to provide support to more families, and increase the support that you are already providing. So, yes, being able to find, more sponsors, larger sponsors. There are a lot of organizations that are out there that do matches. They listen to their employees and they ask them which areas of philanthropic efforts are you most interested in contributing to, and they'll do a match. And that's where, those little things make a big difference if people are thinking about us and connecting us and sharing our information, for those types of opportunities.
I know from personal experience, it's got to be tough for you because there's so many nonprofits doing so much good work, but they all are in need of that support. So nonprofits are competing for the support, and there's only so much to go around. So the personal connection to the cause, and that's how they all work. Whether it's whether the cause is based around cancer or pets or, MS or whatever the case may be. But everybody has a personal story. And despite the fact that there's so much competition, if you will, there's always good causes to help. And that's a great point about the matching, because if corporations or companies ask, what causes are you into? How many people think to mention single parenthood?
Right.
It's sort of off the radar, but that's why the media partners help so much, and why we appreciate so much all the media places that we hit, all the TV stations. But Rebecca Wild has been, a human trumpet for this cause, and she does, but she loves you. You guys are super tight. So, but I just want to give her a shout out, because getting the word out is tough.
It is, and she has been, again, instrumental in just ambassador extraordinaire in talking about and supporting the foundation and seeking out opportunities for us to share our mission. And NBC 12 has been fantastic. They have us in their call center, a couple times a year. CBS 6 has been wonderful. We've been able to connect with Channel 8, ABC, so that's exciting. The Summit Media and the Odyssey radio stations have been incredibly supportive. And again, it's because you've got a couple of people that are like, hey, have you heard about this organization? Would you be willing to have a conversation and learn more? And that's where it all starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of those partners, I can't believe I haven't mentioned them already. We mentioned Final Gravity because we're here, but when you approached me to help out with this, because I am an avid cyclist, that was my first connection to it. I thought this would be, and a couple of my buddies, Dan Cherkis and Steve Dragoni, Steve, who is here, and I want to talk to the riders a little bit later. But this was the first place that came up. We need a place that's really cool, that's community engaged, and it wouldn't hurt if they had a nice space available, and they do. They have an amazing space out back. But one thing I have not mentioned is Blue Ridge Cyclery. We got hooked up with Blue Ridge Cyclery after some employees made the jump from another bike shop, and employees that we had a great relationship with, and specifically Brian Aprell, who is the general manager over there at Blue Ridge Cyclery, and that's the Richmond Libby Hill location. They're based out of Charlottesville, but my point is they have jumped in both feet, and we have sitting right over there a giveaway, a bike giveaway for people who want to sign up for the ride. They're automatically entered. And it's a pretty nice bike. I mean, it's a Trek. I'm not sure what model it is from here. I haven't looked at it because we just got it today. But big shout out to Blue Ridge Cyclery, because I know from my perspective, and you had asked me specifically about this, I wanted to make it an event for cyclists, everyone of course, but specifically because it's a ride that could be a repeat scheduled event every year. And that means building a community, you know, and nonprofits are all about community. Your organization is all about community. The cycling community is very, very engaged, you know. In fact, they're spread pretty thin when it comes to their events. And they usually target a few events each year, whether they're races or or charity rides. But we've been able to grow this thing a little bit, where RABA has now included it as part of their ride schedule. That's the Richmond Area Bicycling Association. Their training group is featuring it. A bunch of the cyclists are already here, and that's in large part to the vibe that Final Gravity / Blue Ridge Cyclery has created through their involvement. They're going to be offering rest stops. They're going to be offering mechanical support. So just a shout out to them, because we appreciate their support so much in helping grow this event.
100%. And again, we can't do what we do without this support. And you know, Blue Ridge and Final Gravity and RABA, they have it's been three years now, I think, that they have been involved, and just incredibly kind and supportive and actively engaged, which gives credibility to the event and what it is we're doing, and that means so much.
It really does.
Yeah.
No, it's a great group of people. But I want to add, before we take a break here, the ride itself is legit. You know, it's not a Century. I know there are hardcore riders who like to use Century's 100-mile rides. But we've got a 50-mile and a 30-mile option. And the 50-mile goes up into Hanover County around Ashland. There are some significant climbs for this area. You know, it's not Colorado, but these rides are legit. So I think if people are trying to choose their calendar options, this ride is October 5th. It's after Heart of Virginia and before the midnight ride. So we're right in the middle towards the end of the season. And I would encourage people to come out and treat it as a training ride, or treat it as a community involvement fundraising ride, whatever reason you need. But it is a fun ride. And I don't know, I'll do it no matter what, but I hope it doesn't rain this year.
You know what? Like we talked about when we first started, this is our year. So even if it's a light rain, we'll take it compared to what we've overcome, the last couple of years.
A light rain would be nice, actually.
Yeah, it would.
But given my choice, if I have to choose no rain or rain, I'll choose no rain.
No rain.
Light rain would actually be awesome. But
yeah.
At any rate, so we'll stop down for a second and see who we can gather up to comment on their experience, but I appreciate you taking a few minutes. I may drag you back in a little later.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
All right, so that was my conversation with Andrea Starr. She had to go off and glad hand and meet people and give out information. Here's some info during a discussion between Steve Dragoni and myself. Steve is on the ride committee with me, and here's that conversation from Final Gravity. All right, cool, and we're back at Final Gravity at the Forward Fest Kickoff, the Go Forward Together ride and Forward Fest Kickoff. And Steve Dragoni's with me, the leader of the Dragon Wagon.
That's me.
And Steve jumped on to the ride committee. He's done the ride all 5 years, but I think this is technically your first official stint on the committee, even though you were super involved last year. And so what I wanted to do is kind of get your perspective for people who are thinking about signing up. You and I ride together a lot. Every weekend there's always some sort of organized ride, whether it's here at Final Gravity or a rabbit thing, or even the races on Tuesday night. I don't race much anymore, but I do want to let the cycling community know that this is and I talked about it when Andrea and I were talking. This is a legit ride.
Absolutely.
It's no Century, but it's a legit ride. We do the Three Sisters up in Hanover. You've done that route before. What did you think of the ride?
Well, it's a great ride. I think when you head up to Ashland, from Final Gravity to Ashland, it's pretty flat. So you get a nice little warm up there, and I think from here to Ashland is probably 15 miles maybe. So everything is wonderful there, and then you get past Ashland, you start heading a little bit further north, and if I'm not mistaken, there is a hard turn, and all of a sudden you're going straight. It feels like you're going straight up a mountain for a little bit.
I think the second sister.
Yeah, I think it
maybe.
might be. I think it might be.
The first one's kind of sneaky because it's gradual, and it's not that long, and you get your down, and then you go back up, and there's that second sister. Of course, whenever we're doing a climb like that, I'm like, this is not Colorado.
No, absolutely
we
not.
could be, climbing for 5 hours.
No, I always think of Virginia as their climbs are more punchy.
Yeah.
They're steep, but they're not that long. So you can kind of almost see the top, but not quite.
But what surprises me, and you ride out at the Northern Neck, we both do, there are climbs everywhere. You go out to the Northern Neck, and you're like, it's all flat. It got quiet in here, didn't it?
It did.
It's all flat, but it's not all flat. Even a 300-meter, 5-degree climb, something to look forward to,
The way I look at it is whenever there's a creek, there's a nice downhill, there's the creek, and then there's a nice uphill. So you get it in. You certainly get your elevation in.
But we had talked about pre-riding this course. Here we are on August 14th, maybe a couple weeks from now. No, 24th. You got something scheduled, but maybe the time after that, or is
Absolutely.
that Labor Day? We'll have to figure that out.
Well, Labor Day's always a good day to everybody gets an extra day there, so that's always a good day to ride.
One of the things Andrea and I were talking about is the support of Blue Ridge Cyclery and how awesome they are. A lot of shops or a lot of cyclists split their time between multiple shops. In my experience this year, Blue Ridge Cyclery, aside from the ride, has just been great.
Fantastic.
Agree, disagree, you're on the spot.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm a Blue Ridge. I'm a Blue Ridge guy, I guess you could say.
An acolyte.
Absolutely. The funny thing is everyone that's at Blue Ridge. That's who I used to go to at another place that got bought by a huge corporate sponsor, which is fine. Yeah. I don't have any problem with that at all. But it's a different name, but it's the same people.
Yeah.
And they're really good at what they do. So.
And bike people are bike people. I spent some time in radio, and everybody in the building is like, we wish we didn't have to work for a major corporation playing semi-program playlists, but you're still working with music every day. You still get to go to a lot of concerts. I see cycling and radio and the music industry as sort of kindred spirit industries because you love what you're doing. Sometimes that's tough, though, like marrying that. My brother Jeff is here, and we talked about that intersection of corporations and commerce and creativity. And there's always a balance.
Yeah.
But still, everybody in the bike business is in there because they like bikes.
Yeah, clearly they're not in it to make any money.
That's true. That's
absolutely true. It just the support that they've provided and the expertise that they have too. There's plenty of bike shops that you can go buy a bike there, and you can, they might have a mechanic on their staff, but they don't ride.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about Blue Ridge is that they actually ride, and when you go in there, the kind of cycling that we're doing, I'm not a pro. I don't pretend to be a pro, but I want my stuff to work, and I think that's important. When you're riding at a certain speed, you want everything to work the way it does, so that it's safe and so that it's a good time. And I think that's what they're very good at, is making sure that everything is working the way that it's supposed to. And that it's safe.
That's a good point, and they're super passionate. I had a bike rebuilt in there this year. It was a Surly Trucker, and it's big and heavy, but super stable and super comfortable. But I had to have it rebuilt, completely rebuilt. And Aaron over at Blue Ridge was so into it. They were like, "Is it okay?"
She geeks out on it.
I know, and it was so cool because I got it back, and I'm like, somebody loved this bike.
Yep.
You know, and that's total bike nerd stuff. Now we're in the weeds.
That's okay. That's all right. I had a bike that I bought during COVID. And during COVID, you got what you got. You know, whatever they had in the shop, that's what you get. And I knew when I bought the bike, I was like, hey, you know what? The frame is fantastic. Everything about the bike was fantastic. But the components, it's not what I wanted. It wasn't bad, but it was what they had.
Yeah.
So I brought the bike into Blue Ridge, and I said, Aaron, this is what I really want to do. And Aaron put together, it was almost like an a la carte menu. If you want to do this, this is what it'll cost you. If you want to do this is what it'll cost you. And through that, I basically, you know, other than the frame, the fork, and the handlebars, everything's brand new. But that bike now, it's like it's riding on rails. It's a work of art. I absolutely love it.
Now, which one is that? The Specialized Gravel?
It's my Diverge. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, it's a good point because they often save money. It's such a balancing act, you know, for them to build up a bike to sell to the mass public, because it's a balancing act of components that are good but good enough. They can't go too fancy because that raises the price. Like, you don't go putting XTR, or Dura Ace on a bike, because how many people really want to pay for that? So yeah, that's interesting, but we're totally in the weeds now.
That's all right. We're talking bikes.
Well, cool, man. I just want to get the cyclist impression. It's cool to see that people have come out for this thing. We got a nice contingent of people who have done the ride in the past.
You know, the other thing I think we should probably cover as well when we talk about the ride, we talk about how technical it is and how it is a bit of a challenge. It's 50 miles, which might be a little bit shorter. You know, people love to put on centuries. People love to put on metric centuries. It's 50 miles, you know, and it's a challenge. But I think the other important thing is the support that we get, you know. I think that really made a big difference last year, especially with the adverse weather conditions that we had, is we had the support on that ride to feel safe. And I think that's an important aspect of the ride.
I'm really glad you brought that up. I was just talking to Andrea about that because some of the motorcycle escorts that we had last year had to bail this year, but apparently we've got at least five of those guys have either re-upped or come on new. And that is everything when you're out there. And like you said, 50 miles, it's a good distance, especially when you mix in climbing. It's not a century. When you get back, you're still refreshed. But the thing is, you're out there 30 miles in and you feel like you're completely alone. If you get a flat, we all carry tubes, but you never know. Or if you go down, you need somebody. Our buddy Ruben was just telling us about an incident on the Buttermilk Trail where this guy thought he'd gotten stung by something, and he was having a reaction, and they had to hike in to get him from two different sides because the fire and EMS, nobody knew which parking lot they were in. And my point is, you go down out there, which is very all they heard was fire and EMS is here, and they were like, which parking lot? We don't know. So my point is, with the SAG support supplied by RABA and the motorcycles who are out there on the course with us, it's everything. And like when you do the MS ride, it's really just a series of 15-mile rides.
Yep.
You know, you do 75 miles or a century each way, each day, but it's really just 15-mile rides, and those breaks are everything. So I'm glad you brought that up. And the support is provided by RABA and by Blue Ridge.
Yep.
So props to them.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, man. Take a break. Anything else? Anything else from the
good.
rider perspective?
I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. All right,
All right.
We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so some gabbing between Steve and myself. Huge thanks to Steve, as always, for jumping on and helping me out with this ride, and to all the volunteers and participants and everybody who comes out and has made this thing kind of a destination event for the last few years. So we talked riding, we talked bike shops. Got my brother on the mic too. I ride with him quite a bit. I ride with Steve a lot with some groups, but I also ride with my brother. Moment's notice type of ride. So we talk a little bit about the ride and his experience as well. Here we are. More from Final Gravity for the Go Forward Together ride on today's Good Eye Podcast. Okay, so we're back, and we are here at Final Gravity still. And this is kind of cool. We're just doing a podcast. This is a version of the Good Eye Podcast on behalf of Forward Foundation and the Go Forward Together ride and Forward Fest. But what we're doing is kind of taking a casual look at everything going on around the ride. And my brother Jeff is sitting here, and we were just talking about it. And he made some really good points. We haven't even talked about the 30-mile option. People have said a couple times, oh, I'd love to do it if it was shorter, like 10 miles, which we get. Not everybody rides every weekend or can do 50 miles or 30 miles. So that's something we're working on. That's something we're keeping in mind. The main obstacle there as to why we don't already have a 10-miler is we just don't have the people. We don't have the resources to man it because we want to keep everybody safe, which brings me to a point that Jeff made, which is really good. And you were talking about, we've kept everything in mind, including the fact that people have allergies. All that stuff has been thought of. We'll have EMS on site. But the 30-mile ride is something I wanted to touch on. And it goes specifically, because we were talking about the Three Sisters, which is those climbs up in Hanover. But the 30-mile ride is good, too. It goes up to Ashland, kind of takes a left there at the 7-Eleven, and if people ride, they'll know it. But if you don't, you can relate or look at the map. It's all online. And comes back. So 30 miles supported at a decent pace is something that a lot of casual riders can do.
Right. And what I was observing and what I've really enjoyed about this ride is that it's engineered, it's driven, it's designed, and it's mapped by you, who I ride with all the time. And I do 5 or 6 charity rides a year. I'm not a racer. I love to ride. I do a couple thousand miles a year, on my road bike. But I ride with you, and you ride a lot more than me, and you cover a lot more ground than me, and you built this. This is the ride that you built. So it's engineered and it's built and it's mapped by someone who understands the user experience of this ride. The safety, the support, the opportunity to take a break or get a bottle refill at a corner store in Ashland. All these things are covered. Like, I think that there's a lot of great rides and there's a lot of awesome organizations doing a lot of good, but there's a lot of disconnection in those kind of things. And the fact that like you're embedded in this organization and you ride 100 miles a week all year long. It's just an excellent ride. It's my favorite. It's my favorite ride to do, and that might have a little to do with the fact that I ride with you all the time. But yeah, I just think there's a lot here to offer for people who want to get acquainted with longer rides, if they don't do longer rides, or if you ride all the time. There's a lot to love about this sort of all meat, or not all meat, but all juice ride.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's a big thing when it comes to charity rides. Is you can get in a great ride and experience some great fellowship. Sounds a little corny, but that's what it is. You get everybody around a common cause and do something hard, and and it's really cool, and you're supporting a great organization. But I was talking to Andrea earlier, and one of the things we absolutely wanted to do around this ride is create a destination event, to your point. I want the riders, I want the cyclists who do 4, 5, 6 events a year to choose this one to do, to know that it was put together with them in mind, but also people who don't ride, which is why Forward Fest even came around, because you're never in a better mood than after a really hard ride and you're finishing and some people that you know and love for a good cause are standing around sharing. So I take your point, and we wanted it to be that kind of thing, and the fact that we're helping such a great organization and such great people come together. There's the Final Gravity Bike Club, which rides every Sunday. There's 2 different rides, a faster one and a slower one. Again, there's something for everybody. And Rabba, who's been super supportive. I don't do a whole lot of Rabba rides, but they're a great organization, and I'm thankful for them. It's usually a schedule thing. You know, a lot of Rabba riders ride during the week, or maybe they have a Saturday ride, which maybe I could do, but it usually defaults to that. But anyway, I'm glad you got to do it last year, and you're right. It's the kind of ride that we do a lot, so I'm looking forward to it once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, any ride that is out there doing good for the community is a ride worth your energy. I don't mean to do the comparison thing. I just think that the fact that, you know, you're kind of the director and coordinator of this ride, and you do it, it just really connects all the dots.
And it's funny because I'm not, and we're just talking shop here now, I'm not long. What's up? I've got a bunch of riding buddies here. I don't do a lot of group rides. You know, I love to ride with all my buddies, but sometimes the coordination is tough or the timing is tough. So it's great when you can bring all those different groups together. You know, people that you see maybe a few times a year, maybe 10 times a year, not that much. But because there are groups around Richmond, they ride every weekend together, just like anywhere. I mean, that's cycling culture. There are 30, 40, 50 people rides. And if you don't ride with those groups all the time, you get to see them at rides like this, and I love that.
Yeah, this ride feels kind of like a snowball rolling down the hill, kind of getting better and grabbing more people, and it's something that, you know, like I said already, basically, you know, if you want a challenge and you're not all in on regular long distance riding, it's something for you to step up to, but it's also something that's utterly meaningful and challenging and interesting and fun and beautiful for, you know, the folks that are riding all the time anyway.
Beauty, man. Cool. Well, we are here at Final Gravity, and this is the first of 2 of these. This one's kind of the kickoff, but it's also a rider appreciation night. We're doing another one on September 11th, but this is so much fun. Maybe we should do more, just, you know, a bike night, you know?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe after a ride or something. But anyway, we'd love some feedback, so if anybody has anything to share, please do. Maybe we'll be back. Maybe we'll bring some more people on board here. But anyway, signing off for now. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks.
All right, so a super casual episode on today's Good Eye podcast. We literally just set up the podcast rig and said, you know, we'll have some conversations and get some information out. Just one more place to go for information as we continue to try to grow this ride, invite and embrace the cycling community and the volunteer community. This is for everyone. Sure, there's a ride in the beginning of the day, but the whole Forward Fest thing, as it implies, is a festival. So come on out, hit us up for more information. Go to the website. If you need anything, feel free to register for the ride. Reach out if you have any questions. And that's it. Thanks for listening to today's Good Eye podcast. We were live from the Kickoff event at Final Gravity for the Go Forward Together ride /Forward Fest. See you back here real soon.